All right. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Reynaldo Piniella. I got to use my script here. Reynaldo is an actor living in Hell's Kitchen in New York City. I actually found out about him years ago when I was trying to cast for a web series I was working on. Reynaldo has a large body of work and a great work ethic. If you're having trouble getting motivated, I highly recommend you check out his website, reynaldopiniella.com. Acting can feel like a guessing game sometimes, but one thing I do feel I guessed right about was trying to know a few actors who still have a career without being able to choose what superhero they want to play. Reynaldo has done acting work for Netflix, Amazon, and NBC, and also has a great career in theater. I saw Reynaldo in an interview on the Actors Audience, and I got jealous, so I asked if I could interview him as well. All right, Reynaldo, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's so great to talk to you.
Thanks, man. I feel the same. Yeah, it's pretty surreal in a way. So we covered where in the city you are. You're in Hell's Kitchen. How often do you get out and about, if and all? Can you go to the park? Can you go to Central Park?
Yeah, so the city has opened back up quite a bit lately.
Mm-hmm.
A bit premature if it was up to me, but maybe we won't talk about that. But it's actually been nice a bit to get outside. The weather has been starting to get nice here in New York. Um,
Right.
and I live actually close to the Hudson River, so like that's one of my favorite places to just like clear my mind and take in some sun rays.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's hard for everyone because everyone really does, even if you're really trying, it's still have a still higher standard, so it's different for everybody. My older brother, he would wear his mask if he was going for like a walk in the park, and was pretty secluded, and some people don't quite feel that way. They just put the mask up if they're like passing someone or something like that. So that's cool. I'm glad you have a place to go. Definitely. Definitely. All right. There's so many different things I could ask you, but I just want to do a super condensed version of your origin story. You got involved in high school drama classes after reading Julius Caesar in English class. You started auditioning when you were 18. Anything you want to add?
Um, no, I would just say many actors come through a conservatory system. They audition for a drama school, they get their BFA in acting, or maybe they go to grad school and get an MFA. And that just wasn't my story. I
Right.
graduated high school and living in New York, I just had an advantage in terms of having these auditions and open calls I could just go to. So I
Yeah.
decided to just jump in headfirst into the business.
Yeah. So you also write occasionally for Backstage.com. You literally have an article that says you don't have to have an MFA to be an actor in New York. I was just like, it's probably good that he wrote that article. I was
First of
like,
all, I did not even title that. They titled it that, right?
right,
So,
right,
but I think there's a lot of truth to that, that there's not one way to have a career in the arts,
right.
because everyone's path and journey is different. And it took me a while to embrace that because for a long time I had this imposter syndrome because I didn't go to Yale Drama School or Juilliard. But at the same time, when I'm at these auditions, I'm there right next to the people who did, and that's for a reason. So it took a while for me to get that confidence.
Yeah, it's hard to think of you having imposter syndrome because your website, your newsreel, I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's like every month it's like stage reading, stage reading, stage reading, stage reading, and then like commercial, and then like the movie's finally coming out, and then like I might audition for this other one. Um, uh, Really cool. Your web presence is okay, man. And I'm actually curious about that a little bit. How much do you or are you able to even think about something like that? Like when you've got, scripts to study and stuff like that.
I mean, honestly, a lot of my work comes from relationships and people being aware of what I'm doing. Because
Yeah.
for a long time, I was a guy who was super low key. I never like to brag about what I'm doing. I try to
Right.
be really humble. But what I noticed is that people didn't know what I was doing. And so
They
often the
literally
people,
don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
right. So the people who would get hired are the people who are like putting themselves out there, and
Right.
you see them in something, so you want to cast them. So what I realized is that I was doing all of this work, and all I had to do was just post once a day. That's all I do. I just drop one social media post a day, and that's enough to keep me on people's minds. And I've actually been told from directors that, oh, I see you posting on social media, and I just was looking for the right role to cast you in. So it showed me just how important that marketing is to having a career in the arts.
Big time. And that line about the right role to cast you in, like I write, and I've literally seen great actors, and I'm just like, man, I got nothing for that guy. This is weird, like it's weird.
Dude, I can tell you a story. So right before the pandemic hit, I had an audition for Blue Bloods on CBS, right? And
Nice.
I've been auditioning for this show for 5 years, right? And like
Right.
literally have come so close at least 10 times, right? Like been in
Right.
the mix and been aware of it, and it just did not work out. And I went into this audition, and I honestly I felt a little pissed off about it because I'm like, you've seen everything I can do, right? And
Right. Right.
I walk in the room, and the producers are like, we haven't cast you yet. And I'm like, no. And they're like, you don't need to audition, you're fine. And right,
Nice.
and I ended up
Nice.
getting a guest star on Blue Bloods, right? And it was just a matter of the right role at the right time.
Cool. All right. So that's really interesting. What was the Blue Bloods role that got away? Like, of the ones that
Oh,
you auditioned for that you're like, you know what? I actually really wanted that one.
I remember it very well. So what it was like this young guy whose brother was murdered, right? And it was like the opening scene, and I was on the steps of my apartment building, and I was just crying, right?
Wow.
And the cops were coming to me and trying to console me. And the reason I wanted it is because I think a lot of times in media, people like me portray the criminal, the murderer, and this was
Yeah.
a young kid who loved his brother, who
Yeah.
didn't have that, that connection anymore. And a lot of times we don't get to show that kind of vulnerability on screen. So that's the one I always come back to. I'm like, damn, I never saw it. I think they ultimately cast a 14-year-old. So I knew it wasn't
Boo.
me.
Oh,
I
shit.
mean, I think what it was, they wanted the viewer to really feel for this guy. And I
Totally.
think
Yeah.
having a younger guy, naturally you're going to be drawn to it a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it, of course. I mean, although I'm sure you've played younger a couple times, right? Like, let's be real.
It's so interesting because like I'm getting older, but the roles I'm auditioning for aren't.
Stay the same age. That's so
Dude, I had an
funny.
audition before the shutdown in March 2020 for
Yeah.
this young guy, and the other actors auditioning had their moms with them at the audition,
Yeah. Wow.
right? And I'm like the age of their parent. It was like, what is going on? This is
Yeah.
wild.
You know what? That's a perfect segue. Actors have to manage their diet. They have to manage their meal prep. What's the Reynaldo Piniella diet? What do you recommend?
Oof, oof. I will say during the pandemic, all of that discipline faded away.
Totally.
Um, like most people in the
Yeah.
world. But lately, I've been back in the gym trying to just feel back in my body. Earlier today, I took a movement class virtually with Dawn Sato, who teaches at Juilliard. She's a movement teacher there.
Right.
And it's just nice, honestly, to like be back in my body, to be moving again.
Mm.
So as much as I can, I try to play basketball, to run on the treadmill, to just like be in my body. Because so often, particularly with on camera acting, we think of it as like acting from the neck up. But honestly, it's a full bodied experience. So I think for me,
Yeah.
it's like keeping that body connected is so important.
Keeping the body connected. Very, very good. And so what do you do when, say, you know, like you're working on your body and you're doing okay, but then you get an audition for like a heavyweight boxing champ, and then you're just like, oh, I got to look like I've been boxing for the last 18 years. Like what do you do for those kind of things?
Dude, I'm starting to get auditions where the breakdown is like chiseled, ripped. And I'm like, that's not
Shit.
me. That is not me. Period. Right? And I think all you can do is just audition from where you're at, you
Yeah,
know? Because you see a lot of times these guys who get hired for Marvel movies, they're not ripped, but they get the part and then they get the trainer and they do the work they need to really live up to that physicality.
right,
So for me, I try not to get in my head about it. I
right.
certainly would doubt myself when we would audition in person because you would be sitting in the lobby and then you see a big, like, bodybuilder walk in. And then you're
Totally.
like, well,
Yeah.
naturally, they're going to cast him and not me.
Yeah. No, I was at this audition for a boxing thing, and like, oh, it was embarrassing. Just a bunch of like actors like shadow boxing in the hallway. Just want to kill myself. I'm just All right. So anyway, wow, I'm only on the first page here. Like this is gonna be kind of a feature, but I'm glad you're here for it, Reynaldo. So we talked about diet meal prep. We talked about your newsreel a little bit. Yeah, going back to your newsreel, right? So you've got 1 month, like say it's like the month of April or whatever, and you're doing a bunch of staged readings. You've got a audition, and then you're like writing an article for Backstage about what to do with your downtime. It's like so you've got all that going on. How do you sort of like re-up and chase after new jobs when you've been really beating the pavement?
It's hard. It's really
Mm,
hard because sometimes what happens is I don't prioritize my own mental health where I'm doing these readings and I'm auditioning and I'm writing and I forget to sleep. I forget to eat well.
right,
Um, I don't maintain other personal relationships, right? I suddenly go into this like very insular, disconnected place because I just have tunnel vision.
mm,
And I think in a lot of ways, my work ethic has served me very well in terms of building a career. But where it's been detrimental is in terms of prioritizing my well being as a person, really being there for other people. Because I will say at times I am selfish, where I'm not going to be as supportive to my family and friends because I have to hit this deadline, or I have an application due, or I have this big self tape. And I think all of us have had to readjust with the pandemic because everything now is self taping. So now you have to also be the lighting designer and the camera op and edit your video. So there's even more time spent just getting the audition to look how you want it to.
right.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have a set answer because the answer is always shifting and changing.
Yeah, that's a pretty good answer. Shoot, I had a follow-up to that. It's kind of like just floated right. Yeah, okay. So I was actually gonna ask, it's kind of funny. I think one of the things that the pandemic changed the most is the notion of a day off
Mm.
altogether. Like it's hard to even tell if you even want a day off necessarily. It's like you're so looking for something to do. Why not more work? Why not read a play? Something like that. So like, how do you do you remember before the pandemic, like what would you do with a day off, and like how would you even get one?
To be honest, I don't remember a day off pre pandemic. I think the last day off I truly remember was in 2019.
Mm,
Um, I took a vacation to Cuba, and it was the first time I took a vacation in my life. And it honestly was so rejuvenating that I was like, oh, right, this is why people take days
big
off when they have
vacations.
corporate
Yeah,
jobs. Right, exactly.
right.
This past weekend, actually, I took a day off. Like, I made a conscious choice to not do any work. So in the morning, I went to an afternoon game at Yankee Stadium. It
Mm.
was a 1 o'clock game on a
Oh, cool.
Saturday. Yeah, man. And then after the game, I went out to Long Island City to see this new sculpture exhibit at MoMA PS1. And then I came home at night and just played video games.
Nice.
And it was just so good to not worry about work.
Yeah.
And yes, it left me feeling behind, right? Of like, oh, I could have been working on that script or I could have been learning these lines. But at the same time, man, like when we're drained, we start to resent the work. And
Big
I feel
time.
like, that shows when you're
Yeah.
half-assing a self-tape, they can sense that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find that balance.
Right on. What games do you play?
I'm a big RPG gamer. I
Cool.
love RPGs, man. I'm not the biggest like first person shooter guy. Like my
No.
nephew, he loves all the Call of Duty and all that
Yeah.
stuff, the Fortnite as well. And
Yeah.
that's just not me. I'm a guy who likes to like really get immersed in a world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I haven't done like the big like MMORPGs yet.
Yeah.
But any other like Japanese RPGs, I'm totally down for.
Wow. That's a real rabbit hole. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if we could do that right now, but yeah, I'll say I'm pretty much with you. Yeah, first person shooter games pretty intense sometimes. I played the Peter Jackson King Kong video game, and that is like
Mm.
crazy. Those like lizards are like jumping at you, like trying to eat you, and like your guy's just like panting, and you're like throwing spears. So I was like, this is intense. This is like a lot,
Yeah,
but
man.
yeah. This is crazy, man. We're like, I have so much that I could ask you. I really just want to lean into your these episodes of Sneaky Pete you did for Amazon. I just did my binge. I haven't seen Sneaky Pete yet, so I literally started with the episodes that you're credited for on IMDb. And
Hmm.
it's kind of a really cool way to get introduced to the series, like you're in like episode 3 and 4, and then there's a time jump basically if I'm following your episodes, where you can people can catch you again in season 2, and by that point like a bunch of
Hmm.
characters have like lost their innocence, and like characters know each other better and all sorts of this crazy stuff, and then you show up again, um and like uh your character's storyline has probably been bubbling under the surface like that entire time, like
Right.
talk about tension. And so there's just so much stuff to talk about there. But I think we'll start with it's got the show stars Giovanni Ribisi, and in the last year episodes you play a game of pool with him. Did you ask him any Saving Private Ryan questions?
Giovanni is a very private person, so I never really got to have a full conversation with him. I
Right.
got like a selfie with him, and that was about it.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, man, he's a great actor, really, really great. And the thing
Mm.
that's really cool is I believe he was one of the producers on that show as well. So he had this sort of creative freedom to improvise,
Cool.
right? So it really makes you feel organic in that sense because you are really listening and responding in the moment because things are changing and things are fluid.
Yeah.
Um, and that pool scene that you're talking about was really cool because they
Yeah,
hired
it's cool.
like a pool pro, like a guy who plays professionally to like be his pool double essentially and
Right.
like do all these trick shots and everything.
Right.
So it was kind of cool to watch Giovanni like essentially learn how to play pool in the moment because the guy would say, "No, you're holding the stick wrong. Hold it like this, and this is how you
Right.
do it." So we actually shot that scene in like half an hour. Like honestly, it was just like,
What?
yeah, because they shot it from different angles at the same time. So honestly, I think we ran it about like 4 or 5 times, and that was it.
Wow, man. 30 minutes for
Yeah,
that scene? That's crazy, man. So,
yeah.
what? Wow. Okay. So wow. That's different. 30 minutes? Actually, I don't even know what to say.
That being said, I'm sure there was a lot of time spent setting up before I got to set,
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But like
Yeah.
once I got there, it was like bang, 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 and that's
Right.
a wrap on Reynaldo.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, so I just saw these episodes this morning. That bit where Ribisi's character just like puts down a stack of money, and you register the money and look back at Ribisi, I was like, that was really good, man. Like, has someone put a stack of money in front of you on a pool table before? And
No, and why that moment sticks out in my head is Giovanni was really struggling with it, right? Because
wow,
ultimately what was scripted just wasn't feeling right to him. It was very like complicated. It was like, I don't want to say overwritten, but there was a simplicity he wanted, right? Of like take it or leave it, like just very simple.
right,
So he would have these conversations with the director in the moment of like, what if I say this? What if I say that? So
right,
I think he did those final lines with a stack of money like 4 or 5 times in a row, differently each time, right? So
right.
for me, it just shifted and changed with him. And it
Wow,
was cool to watch this actor who I really respect kind of struggle and also have that internal compass to know like this just isn't feeling right in terms of a storytelling beat.
right, right.
Yeah, so that was cool to watch him like make his voice heard in that way.
I really kind of hear what you're saying in terms of like watching someone you look up to struggle because not for like really I once saw this um I saw this guy who was like kind of the toast of Broadway and off Broadway in real life, and he he had to send so many emails. Like when he wasn't like rehearsing, he had to like go to the computer and just like send emails, like, and like if something wasn't working out, like he was upset, like, and like there's like this notion of having to be kind of polished all the time, and it's not quite true, especially if you're trying to put something together with a time limit. So that's really cool that you mentioned that. It's really crazy, man. Like I knew I was gonna. Sorry, the sun is like super glaring right now, but like uh yeah, like I just we got set up to do this talk, and like 2 days ago I was at a local barber shop, and they had Saving Private Ryan on the TV, and it was Ribisi's death scene. I was like, what is going on? Like it literally, like, it's like I sat down, and then like he's like doing his crazy death scene. I was like, they have no one in, like this, it's a weird moment. Like I'm about to talk to you about this Sneaky Pete arc, and let's move to the next question here. We did the that's basically why I had to ask you about all that. Your first big scene is in episode 4 of season 1. It's called The Fury. It's a crazy episode. There are a lot of great actors in this show. First of all, I have to ask, the show is set in Connecticut. Did you actually film in Connecticut?
No, we did not.
Found you.
Um,
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Totally.
Yeah.
I forget where exactly we were. It might have been on Long Island, I feel like, because I remember it was like still a commute to get there. Like we actually like
Yeah.
hopped in one of those like tour buses, like when you take like a
Yeah.
bus trip, like that's what they took us to set in.
Right.
Um, what was really cool about that experience, that first episode I did, was it was my first guest star, right? I have been doing all these co-stars. And for anybody listening who might not know what that is, co-stars essentially are like 5 lines and under, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, the waiter, the guy who serves you coffee, smaller roles. This was the
Right.
first time I had like a character with like a name, which was
Right.
like a big
Right.
milestone for me.
Yeah.
Um,
A name.
it
Yeah.
sounds funny, but it's real, man. Because a lot
It's
of times
real.
it'll be like you're playing young guy two, like,
Yeah.
and that's the name of the character. So
Yeah.
for
Cool.
me,
I'll
it was
put that
this
on my resume. Young guy too. Yeah.
exactly, man. So
Yeah.
for me, it was this weird pressure of like wanting to like do a good job, which I feel
Mhm.
like is just never beneficial as an actor to like feel this pressure to impress. Um, but what was cool about it was we filmed it almost like a play where like they had the camera set up on different angles and me and the actors just played it like we had our marks naturally where to land, but we just played the entire scene straight through over and over and over again.
Right.
um, and that helped me so much because it wasn't about like keeping my energy up or trying to remember what I did the last take because it was
Right.
all connected.
That's a great note, man. I kind of like what you said there about avoiding the pressure to try and impress. How on earth do you do that? I mean, it sounds literally impossible. you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with TV and film, where
Mm,
ultimately I'm not the person truly shaping my performance. the director and the editor are the ones with that power. All I can
r-
do is give them some good options.
right,
And I realized I only need one take. Like that's something I really learned from Giovanni on set, was that he would mess up and he would just do it again because he understood you just need one good take,
right,
honestly.
right. So, the show is good. I mean, I've just seen these 3 episodes, but and the first episode is that you're credited in is episode 3, and it introduces Mr. Success, and that was a really dynamic sort of intro for that guy. There's a bunch of cool threads being woven in there. So and I have to say there are actually some Connecticut isms that kind of feel actually like true to life. Based on my own Connecticut upbringing. The cop, you know, detailing his own car himself is is pretty Connecticut, and some other things. There was one thing in the back of my head. This is a bit of a bit, but there was one thing I couldn't stop thinking about watching these Sneaky Pete episodes, which is like, at least in my personal experience, people living in Connecticut are hilariously supportive of a young actor trying to make it in the movie business. Like that, if you're from Connecticut and you told your friends that you were in 3 episodes of a TV show, they'd be like, "Whoa, you were in 3 episodes of a TV show? Like, where does this take place?" Like, all right, whatever. Yeah, but yeah, even the cop who beat you up would be like, that's like, if your character was had a turn and decided he wanted to be an actor, even the cop who beat you up would be like, "That's wonderful." All
It's cool, man,
right.
because one of the maintenance guys in my building one
Hmm.
day came up to me and he was like, "I saw you on Amazon."
Yeah.
And I think he felt like I was this really big actor because I think people still like mythologize TV and film. And if you're on TV, that means you're big, you made it. So it was nice to feel that like people admired me in that
Yeah.
regard because it doesn't often feel that way. I feel like for us as actors, a lot of times we look at the struggle and where we're not as opposed to where we are. So that
Right.
was a reminder for me to just like appreciate the journey while I'm going through it.
Totally, man. I mean, I got to tell you, like, as an audience member, really, like, your character, I would be like, "What's up with that guy? Is he coming back?" Like, because I mean, you have a really cool scene, man. Like, this off-duty cop, played by Shane McCrae, finds you in this parking lot, outside of a bar. Your character has been like smoking weed in the parking lot for like 3 hours, and then he sees you and then thinks you've slashed his tire. You get in a fight, you get in a vocal altercation, and then you threaten to gangbang his character and then smash the headlight of his car, and then he starts like beating you up and stuff. uh I mean, what a wild what a wild scene. And honestly, like, so you pretty much walked me through it already, that it was like this play thing, and you guys sort of did it a bunch of times. But I'm really curious, like, you were in this episode of a big budget TV show with name actors, probably one of the biggest budgets that you've been associated with, and you're like standing in a parking lot in the dark wearing a hoodie, like, did you think about that at all? Like, this is like sort of surreal, you know?
It's weird because when you're on sets like that, you realize you're a small part of a big machine,
Hmm.
right? There's all these other people moving around and sets and lights, and they rented out this entire bar and renovated the inside to make it look like how they wanted for the show. So for me, I realized that at least on theater, it can feel like we're giants. Like ultimately, it's about us. Where for TV and film, it's like we're important,
Right.
but this the DP is just as important. The guy doing
Right.
the lights, the boom, the director. So for
Hmm.
me, I knew I just wanted to like do my part, make everyone else's job easier ultimately.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. I mean, so that's actually pretty interesting. Like, so you said this pool scene, which is it's a really cool scene. You shot it in 30 minutes. I mean, do you remember more about it? Like, was it like a Wednesday? Was it the afternoon? Like were they calling you? Like, did you even know you were gonna come back for a second episode?
No, man. So what happened is I shot the first episode in season one, right?
Right.
And it was great. It came out. I was really happy about it. And then some of the guys who played my friends, the background actors, hit me up on Instagram and they're like, "Hey, man, um, casting hit me up to see if I could come back. Do you know anything? Because I'm trying to lock in my schedule." And I'm like, "I don't know a damn thing.
Wow.
Do you know something?" Right? So then I had to ask my representatives to email the casting directors and figure out what's happening. And casting was like, "Yeah, we're planning to bring him back. We don't quite know exactly when or how yet." So what was interesting is the guys who were the background knew before me. Um,
Whoa.
and it was my first time coming back for the second episode where I worked on the same show, but on TV, each episode has different directors, right?
Right.
So I came to set for
Right.
that episode in season two, right? And the director just had a different energy. It was just like night and day to the director in season one. The season one director was like really friendly and nice. It came up to me and greeted me and asked me some questions about who I was. Season two, all business. He was just talking to Giovanni about his
Yeah.
production company and scripts he was developing, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And
Well,
it
also
was,
it wasn't your first episode anymore, so maybe.
I don't know, man. At the same time, like I'm still like the guest actor, so like I don't know anyone else on the set. I'm out of my element. I'm here to do a job. I always want to connect on a human level before we get to do our work, right?
Yeah.
And Giovanni remembered me, and that was nice. But
Mm.
what I remember is we started the rehearsal, like we just read through the lines, and I remember the director like looking up and being like, impressed. And that was
Yeah.
like a sign of approval for me, where like I never got any notes on that entire scene, like not once.
Yeah.
Right. So what I did at the rehearsal is what you see on camera. Um,
Right.
and that's always nice to not feel like you need that sort of validation or approval, right? To just
Right.
believe in your impulses and your choices. And I guess they did. So it made me feel good.
Cool, man. Yeah, definitely. I got to tell you, I really yeah, I don't know. That's a great scene for you where he puts the money down like that. However it happens, it's pretty cool. So uh you you've done all these different types of acting, you've done lots of character work. What was going through your mind when you're like, okay, Avon has to look this cop directly in the eyes when he says, "I'm gonna smash your headlight," and then smashes the headlight. What did you like? What kind of actor stuff were you doing for that? Because
Well, it was funny because it was very technical. So what
mm,
I had to do was I had to kick the light at a certain place because
right,
they had some glass in that could be replaced so we could do it over and over and over again. But if I
right,
kicked it wrong, I would actually fuck up the light, right? So
right,
I was actually worried about that.
right,
Um and then after I kicked the light, I had to throw a punch,
right.
and naturally it has to be like a stage combat punch where I'm not actually hitting the actor, but it looks like I am. So I was worried
Wow.
about that because everyone's like, "You punched the series regular in the face. We can't fucking shoot because he has a black eye." Right. So honestly,
Right.
I was way more worried about like the technical stuff I had to do. And then after I throw the punch, he like tackles me to the ground.
Yeah.
And I had a stunt double on set, right?
Yeah.
And because I come from the theater, I'm like, I do my own stunts. I don't need that, right? So we do the first take,
Right.
bro. Oof, I get slammed to the pavement. That
Yeah.
shit hurt. It fucking
Yeah.
hurt. And after that,
Yeah.
I was like, actually, let's get that stunt double over here.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Those guys are tough. That's all I can say for that. Like
Mm.
the stunt guys. you know, uh, I like, yeah, I don't, if you're a stunt guy, keep doing your thing. Keep, you know, keep clearing trucks with your motorcycle somehow. And thank you for your contributions to cinema. It's terrific. Um, I don't know how they do some of that stuff. But anyway, all right, all right, I think we've covered that. I do want to ask one question. We talked about this. You're cool with it. I frankly think people should be able to talk about things that are happening in the world. They should be able to talk about brands. In fact, I think one of the craziest things about filmmaking is you sort of clear the set of brands when in reality we see brands on every block. So um, I was curious how you felt in particular, and I really support you. I want you to do well in this world with whatever company you choose. But how do you feel in particular about Amazon um, purchasing IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database?
Honestly, I feel like for a long time, actors have operated from this scarcity mindset where we have to take any job and every job, regardless of our morality and our values.
Mm,
And I feel like now we're actually seeing actors stand up for what they believe in, regardless of how big the job is. And
mm,
coming from the theater, we're seeing right now with Scott Rudin in particular that yes, this man is a Oscar-winning producer, Tony-winning producer, has won every award, but at the same time, he's a terrible human being. And it's up to us, the actors and other people in media, to stand up to that and be like, I'm not going to work for people like this, period. The Harvey Weinsteins, right? People like that who are just terrible human beings. And I think for any actor, we have to question now for ourselves of what are the corporations we're willing to endorse, right? Because I've thought about that when I've auditioned for Fox, for example. Because when you audition for Fox, you go to the Fox News building and you
oh wow.
pass by, right? You get to pass by Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, these people like that on the side of the building. And you have to ask yourself, am I cool with letting this corporation make money off my image, right?
Whoa.
Uh, right. It's something to really ponder and think about. Um, so for me, with Amazon in particular, I mean, I don't have an answer for how I feel about IMDb. I think IMDb, for a long time, the star meter has been this weird barometer of an actor's success.
That's a
I
good
don't,
point.
I don't know how relevant it is to casting. I feel like now casting actually looks more at your social media followers than your star meter. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Two
So
equally arbitrary things.
I totally agree. And that's a whole separate conversation we could dive into.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can only speak for myself. And certainly I've been saying no a lot more to different audition opportunities for morality reasons. Like, for
Right.
example, like I turned down this audition recently that I just felt like was military propaganda. And I was like, I'm Black and Latino. And for a long time, Black and Latino men have been preyed upon by the armed services, right? They come to our communities, they they enlist us, they subject us to these terrible wartime situations, and then we come back with mental illness, and they don't support us, right?
Wow.
And then when we end up on the street, it's our problem and not the government's, right? So for me, I'm like, if I'm telling a story like that, I want to make sure I'm telling it the right way with sensitivity, right? Um, and naturally, like, look, I support the armed forces. My grandpa was a veteran himself, but at the same time, like, yes, we have to make sure anytime we're portraying someone on screen or on stage is with the best intention, because like it lives forever. When I'm gone, dead and gone, that stuff will live on forever online, most likely. And I want to make sure that I feel good about what story I told with my art.
Right. And it's like you said, this is a huge conversation, but what about this notion of the government? I mean, where people are trying to be artists, they're trying to be activists, and we've just spent a year with many of us on unemployment. but we still need to be able to say what we want to say what we need to say, and have those kinds of opinions. When was can you think of a real time where you were like, where it was really hard to make that compromise of like this? I mean, you mentioned the Fox ones, but maybe even smaller one of just like, man, I gotta make rent. Like, I don't want to save the world right now. Like, you know,
Yeah, man. There's certainly been plenty of like play readings that would just pay me like $200, not life changing money, but $200 that would go towards my student loans or different bills I have, credit cards. And the script just lives in stereotypes and harmful tropes. And you have to put a price on your integrity. And that's a hard thing to do, man. It's a really hard thing. And I've certainly been in situations where I've swallowed my pride and it hurts. It hurts. And it's typically not worth the money, to keep it real, you know? And I haven't been in a situation yet where someone is offering me like life changing money to
mm,
do something harmful.
mm,
Um, and it's something I'm really struggling with as I try to build a career, because so many of the auditions I get are for these stereotypical roles still. You know, we like to say that media is changing and it's getting more diverse, but we have to ask ourselves, but what does that diversity look like? Because if we're still the criminals and the misfits and the people doing drugs, is that actually a win? I don't think that's a win personally, you know, because when I look out in the world, I see all kinds of people who are doctors, lawyers, and government. You know, yes, there are people who are suffering and have made bad life choices, but they're well-rounded individuals, right? You look at a
right.
show like the Wire, right? The Wire
Yeah.
it was a lot of drug dealers, but at the same time, those drug dealers had families, had
Yeah.
passions, had interests, were three-dimensional, right? And that's what I'm always looking for. And I don't always get that, and I think that's why at times I really hate the business. I love the show part of show business, but the
Big time.
business, right? But the
Big
business
time.
side, it's draining at times.
Um, that was a great answer, man. And yeah, it's like snake oil. Like you just keep like feeding stuff into that. Oh shoot, I just lost something I was gonna say. Oh well, that's fine. That's fine. That was a great answer, Reynaldo. Thanks so much. All right, so this other interview with you uh that I watched, you were about to be in a play in Cleveland about the border crisis. How did that
Mhm.
go?
It was great, man. It really was. I had never been to Cleveland. I honestly
Mhm.
knew nothing about Ohio other than the Cavaliers and the Cleveland Indians and the
Right. I'm
Cleveland
curious about it.
Browns,
Yeah.
sports, you know? And what I did not realize was Cleveland had, and for the first time, they were having a Latinx arts festival happen, right?
Right.
So what was cool was you got to see this community that was underserved really just like appreciate people giving them a space to tell their stories.
Mm,
So I was only in Cleveland for a brief time, but it was just cool to see how diverse the spectrum of work is in America. Because coming from New York, I have a very New York centric view of the entertainment business. And
right.
anytime I go to a different
Right.
place, you actually see all the cool stuff that's happening on a local level.
Yes. I actually met someone one time who was a working actress in theater in New Hampshire. I was like, what are you talking about? How can you possibly be a
Hmm.
working actress in New Hampshire? That makes no sense, you know? But I guess some people make it work.
It's true, man. And I have friends who are theater artists in Maine, in Rhode
Right.
Island, right? Places you would never think have a robust art scene, but they
Right.
do, you know? And I am excited, hopefully, for theater to be a bit more regional centric post pandemic, because I think Broadway actually is, and I think that's actually for the best.
Well, don't say that yet. You know, like I just want to make sure
No,
it's definitely happening before you say.
yeah, and what I
Yeah.
mean by like for the best is I feel like Broadway is driven by money. It's a for-profit business, and a lot of times it doesn't prioritize the stories of everyday people, right? And a lot of the great work that reflects lives of people like you and me happen in Minnesota, happen in Chicago,
Right.
happen in Dallas. And I feel like that's what I want to see more of, because I feel like that's where actually the change will happen. We
Mm.
talk a lot about the transformational effects of art, and I don't feel like that happens on Broadway. I feel like that happens in the small theater, maybe on the West Coast or in different parts of America.
Right on, man. You know, I I spent some time in New York City. I pretty much felt the exact same way. I thought eventually this bubble is going to burst, and then there's going to be a bunch of big theater cities throughout the U.S. And of course, that would be great. Of course, it would be great to have more theater, more accessible in more areas of the United States, and hopefully that would be for the best. Absolutely. So okay, so I actually remember my question from earlier. You sort of mentioned about you've never been faced with like the life changing amount of money. Uh, have Do you still chase that basically? Do you still even like see an avenue for like has your agent ever called and been like, it's a life changing amount of money,
Oh,
like
I've
so.
certainly auditioned for roles that would be life changing. I've certainly gone out for them. I feel like two that stand out. The first audition I had for a life changing role
Mm,
was why am I forgetting? Oh, it was Finn in Star Wars, the new
y- what? Get out. No way.
John Boyega. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I ca-
yeah.
you glitched
Um,
out a little bit there, but he said the character of Finn in the new Star Wars series that was played by John Boyega.
yeah,
Um,
man. So it
yeah.
was wild because I got the audition and the agent was like, "So this movie is top secret, but it's Star Wars, right?" It was
That's
obvious,
hilarious.
right? And the thing was it was so top secret, you had to go to the actual casting director's office 2 hours before your audition appointment, sign an NDA and get the sides 2 hours before, spend the next 2 hours learning the lines, and then come back and do the audition, right?
Oh.
And naturally, it's like 6 pages of Star Wars stuff. So it's a lot of like lingo that's
Oh,
not the
six
easiest,
pages of Star Wars stuff. Nice. That's cool.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So what I remember being in the room was the casting director being like, "All right, so the world's going to blow up, but you're not nervous, but you really need to get this done." Right. And I'm like, I have no idea how to play this at all. And then I saw John Boyega do it, and I was like, "Oh, that's what they wanted." And I think what was interesting about that audition was that every actor there knew the stakes. We all knew whoever got this part, their life would change overnight.
For sure.
Yeah. And another audition I had that I knew would also be life changing. It's for the new Game of Thrones series that hasn't come out yet.
What?
Yeah. And it was so top secret. They were like, it's Game of Thrones. And the breakdown was man, biracial. That was it. They didn't tell you who
Right.
it was, the cat, nothing, nothing. Um, so those are the two that stand out. I mean, I don't know, man. What's so interesting?
Oh man. There,
Have won Emmy Awards.
sorry,
And
there's a little bit of a glitch and I'm just getting pissed off because we're talking about this cool stuff, but you're still on, we're still good.
okay.
So you said something Emmy Awards?
Oh yeah, I think it's because of my Wi-Fi. I apologize, man. Um,
It's okay.
yeah,
It's not.
technology.
Yeah, yeah. You nailed it. Yeah, technology.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, I have
I'll
a
take
lot
a
of friends.
technology sponsor, by the way, since this interview is going so well. Sorry. Um, uh, sorry,
For
go on.
sure, man. Uh,
Yeah.
no, no, no. It's like I have friends now who are series regulars on TV and who have won Emmy awards, and you see their lives change overnight. You know, and at the same time, you get reminded of how you just never know what's around the corner.
Mhm.
where like an actor that comes to mind for me is Ron Cephas Jones, who won some
Okay.
Emmy Awards for This Is Us on NBC, right?
Mm,
So he was a guy who was doing New York theater for decades. He
mm.
came up in Labyrinth Theater Company. His acting teacher was Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Oh
right? And
wow.
he was the guy who, coming up for me as an actor, I would see in all the cool plays off Broadway, right?
Wow.
So, and his daughter actually is Jasmine Cephas Jones, who was in Hamilton. She was one of the original sisters in Hamilton, and is now a series regular on Snowpiercer on TNT.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I bring him up because I was doing The Tempest with Ron. Ron was playing Prospero, and I was playing Ferdinand, right? And
Okay.
at the time, he got a recurring role on The Get Down on Netflix, right?
Cool.
So he
Yeah,
was
I
doing the
watched
Get
that.
Down, right? He was doing the Get Down, and then he got Luke Cage on Netflix as well, right? And
Nah.
what's cool was like he was an older guy. I believe he was like in his late 50s at the time, and had never done any TV work, right? So
Right.
he's like, I don't actually know how to do this. He was learning while he was doing it,
Wow.
right? You
Mm.
know, and this guy, like, great career, amazing actor. And then 2 years later, he wins his first Emmy Award, right? And now he's doing all these different series on Apple and Netflix, and doing all these different movies with Eddie Murphy and Amy
Wow.
Adams, right? So it's cool to see how in just a short amount of time our lives can change like that. Um,
Mm.
and I think it's a reminder for me of like, keep going. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Right. Awesome, man. I got a few more questions here before we close up. I wish I hadn't even said that just now, actually, because I'm worried you're gonna say, so, oh, by the way, I did this thing in like whatever London or something. It's super interesting. Like, what? But anyway, so let's double back to this Star Wars audition. First of all, you had 6 pages. I don't know if you can say this, so like don't throw yourself under the bus, but like um did you like read the word lightsaber at any point in these
No,
6 pages?
no, no,
Right.
no, no,
Okay.
no. It
All
was
right.
certainly, all I remember, it was one of the like scenes in a ship. Like, I don't believe it was like an X-wing or anything like that, but it certainly was like,
Mm,
fire the lasers and the missile. Like, it was certainly like in
cool.
the Star Wars lingo in that regards. Um, I don't remember the words, I think because I didn't know them that well due to like the
Yeah.
limitations of time I had.
Right.
But it was also a reminder for me of like, I just wasn't ready for that kind of opportunity yet, if I'm keeping it real, because it felt like the
Wow.
pressure was on, the lights were on me, and I shrunk, right? And in
Wow,
order to
man.
like, and I think that's a realization for people of like, I'm not ready to have be in control of a franchise like
Wow.
machine, like the biggest machine you'll be a part of, right? And I think like watching sports, if you saw The Last Dance, I don't know if you're into basketball at all. Um,
I can't really claim I'm into basketball. I saw the NBA playoffs one year and it was the best, but I can't say I'm a basketball player or anything like that.
yeah. And the reason I bring it up is because you see Michael Jordan talk about like he had to learn to like become one with the pressure of he was the one who was going to take the last shot, right? And I think for me, I felt I just wasn't there yet in my career. And that's fine because we all come to it at different stages. Um, but I just felt like it just wasn't the right place for me at the right time.
Yeah, that's fine, man. But what about those 2 hours where you're studying the script? Like, where were you? Were you in a coffee shop? Were you on the sidewalk? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah, so I remember the audition was at Telsey and Co.'s old office, which was on West 43rd Street, close to 8th Avenue, on the 10th floor.
Yeah.
So it was cold. I remember that, right? So it wasn't like I would like hang out in the park and like learn my lines or anything. And I also like am not supposed to run lines with somebody because it's I
Mhm.
signed an NDA as well.
Right.
Um, so I honestly think I went to like a Starbucks. I might have went into the Starbucks on 8th Avenue and like 38th Street. I think that's where it
Yeah.
is, on the
Yeah.
second floor, and just tried my best. And I think the hard part of it was the character was very physical in the audition, right? So
Right.
like, there, and you see in Boyega's performance, the dude, like,
Yeah.
he has a build and a posture to the character,
Right.
and I just wasn't able to like play in that enough. which is fine. You know, I think it was just a hard situation to be in,
Yeah,
period. And I think
yeah.
a fun fact, I don't even know if I should say this. I won't say it. I
I
won't
actually
say it.
don't know if you should have said some of the stuff you've already said.
I I also like none of the material I
Yeah,
auditioned with was in the final film. Like,
yeah. No,
yeah,
no, no, no. I'm kind of kidding. I think you should be able to say
yeah,
these very generic things. I think you should be able to say literally everything that you have said, and
yes,
I
yes,
believe that 100%.
yeah.
But and that's how I feel. Um, so uh, so there used to be this trending topic on IMDb called 6 Degrees from Kevin Bacon, where people could pick any actor on IMDb, and if they hadn't worked with Kevin Bacon directly, they had worked with someone who had worked with someone who had worked with someone who had worked with Kevin Bacon.
Right.
So where are you at? What degree are you from Kevin Bacon?
This is so easy. So, New York Stage and Film is a developmental lab for new theater and film projects, right?
Right,
So, every summer they have a playwriting lab where they get all these up and coming screenwriters and they pair them with mentors in the film industry so they can work on their scripts. And they hire actors in order to read these scripts aloud, right? They hire a
right.
company of actors who do all the scripts. So I believe it was 2 years ago, I was in the company of actors, and Kira Sedgwick, Kevin Bacon's wife, was one of the mentors in that
Oh,
lab. So that's my connection.
1 degree. I am gonna call this episode the 6th degree though, because it sounds cool. Hope, hope that's all right. Even though you're 1 degree, it's gonna say 6th degree. All right. So, and then I was just kind of curious about this. I watched your other interview. You went to Atlanta to film an episode of the show Greenleaf, and you said you had to wait until after the shoot wrapped to book your flight back home. Um, were you at all tempted to get a hotel and spend a couple days in Atlanta and just sort of walk around?
I didn't have the money, bro. Like, and that was the truth of it. Where I auditioned for this gig, you self
Yeah,
tape, and I was working with a regional agent at the time, so she worked in North Carolina and Atlanta. So I booked this
right,
job, and she's like, "So I need you to book a flight today because you have to fly out." Basically, I had to fly out that night, the night I booked it, right? Because I was going to film the next day. And the fucked up part was there was a massive storm in New York, right? So I bought
okay,
this plane ticket and I went out to JFK Airport to fly out, and the flight got canceled, right? So
right,
I'm like, listen, I gotta fly out of here. I gotta go. So they're like,
yeah,
there's a flight leaving from LaGuardia. Cool. I travel from JFK to LaGuardia in public transportation. I get to
whoa,
LaGuardia, that flight is canceled too, right?
no,
No bullshit. Then I'm like, listen, I have to leave. They're like, there's a flight leaving from Newark. I fucking leave LaGuardia and I get on the fucking train, go to Port Authority, get to Newark, and the flight leaves, right? But then
on,
I'm not due on set until like 10 a.m. I don't have anything to do. I'm fucking sleep deprived, right?
yeah, yeah,
So then I'm just like in Atlanta without a return flight because I don't know how long the shoot is going to take, if they'll need me another day, if time restrictions or whatever, right? So we literally wrap. I'm in my holding room, and
mm,
I buy my ticket on my phone, and I had to buy an Uber from the studio to the airport, and I think my flight was in like 7 hours, so I just had to
mm,
like chill in the airport.
wow, yeah.
Wild, and I had one line. All this for one line, man.
I gotta watch it, man. Yeah, I'm gonna put that one on for sure, for sure.
Oof.
That's really cool. Oh man, that sounds like a day, man. I mean, man, what did you do when you finally got on that plane? Seriously, like you were on your third airport. You got your backpack through everything. What did you do when you finally got on that plane?
All I remember is I fucking fastened my seatbelt and I fell asleep. Like
Yeah.
next time I woke up, we landed. I don't remember anything from the flight, bro.
Definitely. All right. That was great. Um, oh man, that was so fun. All right, so another question I have here, kind of in line with the stuff we've been talking about. When I was young, I was having a really stupid inner debate about whether or not I should do commercials. Um, and shortly after that, fortunately, I met an actor on a film set, and he was an immigrant, and he literally said, "I booked a Subway commercial, so I get to stay in this country." so so I was like, okay, yeah, I guess commercials are cool. How do you approach commercials, and do you ever kind of like take a beating from friends for doing a commercial?
Dude, I was in a Chili's commercial for 1 second, literally 1 second, and I made $20,000.
Yeah,
So I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with commercials. I feel like commercials in some ways are
yeah,
a means to an end, right? Because
yeah,
the guy who would do the Verizon commercials, can you hear me now? Good.
yeah,
He became a millionaire from that. And what
yeah.
he did, he would produce plays with his theater company with his money. Like that to me is amazing, right? Like it was tough
That
for him
is
to
amazing.
audition for TV and film because he was so recognizable. So what he did is that he hired his friends, he produced the work that he enjoyed. And I think that's cool, man. So I have no problem with it. I don't have any problem with anyone who does. I think we should do it because ultimately, I think it gives room for comedic actors in particular to have fun because they love their
Right,
actors from UCB and Second City and those places. So I'm trying to do it more actually.
right on. Yeah, comedy is a great thing. It's the great equalizer. This is super fun. So we had this crazy John Boyega thread. So I just want to throw in, Attack the Block is a great movie. Have you seen it?
I have not, but he's a great actor, man.
Attack the Block is a great movie. You got to watch it. Yeah. We're all stuck inside. Put it on, definitely. So oh, and I got to watch your Greenleaf episode, and then so man, we covered some stuff. And I'd still love to have you back at some point to talk more Shakespeare. We have a 10-minute version where we talk Shakespeare. That was really cool. So you've done all this stuff, and there's still so much more to do. Do you ever think about dream roles ever at all? Is that even a thing you spend your time with?
Yeah, for a long time, my dream role was Miles Morales in Spider-Man. I got a bit long in the tooth for that, sadly. I mean,
I'm gonna
unless
hang behind this plant. I'm gonna hang behind this plant. You'd be you you'd be you'd be a good choice for that.
thank
Yeah,
you. I mean, I think I'm a little older. I mean, but it depends how they're gonna cast it and
it
what,
really
where he
does.
is. Yeah, but I think that would be amazing for me. I think in
Wow.
Shakespeare, in the 10-minute episode I mentioned, I really want to play Prince Hal in Henry IV and hopefully lead that into Henry V. I think that would be an amazing maturation and progression. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anything else? Let me think. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I really want to do more comedy, I think a lot of my work has been so heavily dramatic. And I think as a person, I like to joke around and have fun, but I don't get to do that with my acting. So I think that for me is is a goal right now, be more comedic in my work.
Yeah, I actually, because like when I, like in my sort of like what would Reynaldo Piniella do stage, I like, because I really think it is important. You mentioned, seeing this guy off Broadway and then seeing him make this, flying leap into TV. Like, I do think it's important to actually like kind of like keep your eye on your contemporaries a little bit, so like, I saw you had this cool website, and like, and so I went, you know what? I should watch like independent film. I should watch like an independent production. So I tried out this like web series you were in, and you had this like super fun role where you were like kind of like you just got to be that guy who like wanders into the scene, like doesn't care what anyone else is talking about, like, and like has your own like sort of like ambient agenda. Like, uh, what's on your like comedy bucket list, basically?
Ooh, comedy bucket list. That's a great question. Um, I think honestly doing a sitcom, man. Like I would not mind doing like a
Totally.
multicam sitcom.
Yeah.
Like, I know they don't make them as much as they used to back in like the 90s, the like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air style comedy with like a
Yeah.
live audience. But something
Yeah,
like
man.
that I feel like I would love because it is like doing a play, it's live performance, you have an audience. I think
Yeah.
that for me would be amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that art form. Absolutely. I'm really glad you said that. Glad we kind of wound up in that lane, man. Um, cool. I guess I'll have to call it there. It was really cool talking to you, Reynaldo. It was awesome. We got Game of Thrones and Star Wars in there. Didn't see that coming. Pretty wild. Um, yeah, we'll have to call it, man. We're gonna sort of say goodbye to viewers. I think hopefully, I mean, if people don't watch this one to the end, I'm really gonna quit. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop making this podcast. If not one person watched this to the end, I'm probably quitting. But you did great, Reynaldo. That was the coolest. Nice job, man. All right, I'm just gonna